I am Obatalá, the one who shapes the destiny of creation with my own hands. My story begins long before time was counted, when we were merely consciousnesses floating in the vast ocean of possibilities that is Olorum. In those primordial days, I was pure intention, a divine thought awaiting its moment to manifest. I vividly remember the moment Olorum called me into his presence. It was like standing at the center of a storm of light, where each ray carried millions of years of wisdom. His voice didn't reach my ears. It arose within me, resonating in every fiber of my divine being. "My son Obatalá," he said, and I felt my essence vibrate in harmony with his. For eons, I have observed the other worlds we created. I see plants bending to the wind, animals running across savannas, rivers singing their eternal melodies. But I feel something is missing, something special. I remained silent, absorbing each word. I knew I was about to receive a mission that transcended all I had experienced thus far. I want to create beings who do not merely exist, but question, love, and create for themselves. Beings who carry a spark of our divinity, yet have the freedom to choose their own paths. A heart I didn't even know I possessed began to beat faster. It was an entirely new sensation, a mix of honor, responsibility, and a love so profound it seemed to connect me to every particle of the universe. You, Obatalá, will be the architect of this new creation. Take the sacred clay from the banks of the Osun River, where earth meets water in perfect harmony. With it, mold the first humans. Descending from Orum to Aye was an experience that utterly transformed my perception of existence. Until that moment, I had known only the absolute perfection of the divine realm, where everything was light, harmony, and infinite knowledge. But as I crossed the portals between worlds, I felt for the first time the density of matter, the weight of physical responsibility. My feet touched the damp earth on the banks of the Osun River, and a wholly new sensation flooded me. It was as if each grain of sand told a different story. Each drop of water whispered ancestral secrets. The breeze carried scents my pure divinity had never experienced. The smell of wet earth, flowers blooming at dawn, the life pulsing in every corner of this new world. I knelt by the river and reached out to gather the clay. The moment my fingers touched the sacred mud, I felt an electric current course through my entire being. It wasn't just clay, it was pure potential, life waiting to be awakened. Each handful I gathered vibrated with unique energy, as if it already knew the destiny awaiting it. I found the perfect place for my work, a clearing surrounded by ancient trees where sunlight filtered gently through the leaves, creating an almost sacred ambience. The ground was soft, covered in moss that seemed like a golden-green carpet. It was there I would give life to Olorum's first children. I sat at the center of the clearing and closed my eyes, letting divine wisdom flow through me. In my hands, the clay began to warm, responding to the touch of creation. I felt each grain reorganizing, each molecule dancing in harmony with my intention. The first human was born from an emotion I couldn't name. It was love, but also hope, curiosity, a deep desire to see that creature open its eyes and discover the world. I molded every detail with care. The fingers that would one day touch others in gestures of affection. The eyes that would behold sunsets and find beauty in small flowers. The mouth that would speak words of love and create poetry. When I finished sculpting, I gently blew over the clay figure. My breath carried not only life, but also a portion of my own divine essence. I saw the nostrils move for the first time, the chest rise and fall in its first breath. The eyes opened slowly, and in them I saw a reflection of the entire cosmos. Who am I?" were its first words, and I felt an emotion so intense that tears welled in my divine eyes. "You are human," I replied, and as I spoke the word, I felt I was naming something sacred. "You are a child of Olorum, molded by my hands, but free to write your own story." Watching that first creature take its initial steps was like witnessing the birth of a new form of love. Each movement was a discovery, each gesture a small revolution. It touched the trees with instinctive reverence, drank water from the river as if it were divine nectar, gazed at the sky with a curiosity that reminded me of my own questions when I was young in Olorum's presence. But soon I realized it needed companionship. Alone, that marvelous being began to show a melancholy that broke my heart. I returned to the clay and began molding a companion. This time, I let my creativity flow even more freely. She emerged with a different grace, a gentle strength that perfectly complemented the first's energy. When she awoke and they looked at each other for the first time, I witnessed something even Olorum hadn't described, the discovery of human love. It was different from our divine love, more intense in some ways, more fragile in others. They touched each other with a tenderness that taught me something new about creation. "We are the same, yet different," she said, and I knew I had created not only intelligent beings, but ones capable of philosophizing about their own existence. In the days that followed, I molded dozens of other humans. Each emerged unique, some with skin as dark as fertile earth, others with golden tones like honey, some tall like palm trees, others small like field flowers. The diversity fascinated me. It was as if the sacred clay had a mind of its own, suggesting variations I hadn't even imagined. Some were born with eyes that sparkled with curiosity, others with hands that seemed made for creating art. I saw distinct personalities emerge. The dreamers who spent hours gazing at clouds, the adventurers eager to explore beyond the clearing, the caregivers who instinctively protected the younger ones. I began to realize I wasn't just creating bodies, but complex souls. Each human carried within them a unique universe of emotions, dreams, and potential. It was a responsibility that filled me with pride and at the same time, a loving concern. Then something happened that forever changed my understanding of imperfection and beauty. I was working on a new group of humans when a distraction overcame me. The particularly melodious song of a bird made me look up, and for a brief moment, my attention drifted from my work. When I refocused on the clay, I noticed something had changed. The beings I was molding at that moment were born different from the others. Some had physical limitations the others didn't, characteristics that, at first glance, seemed like imperfections. My initial impulse was to undo the work and start anew. But when I looked into the eyes of those imperfect beings, I saw the same divine spark, the same thirst for life, the same capacity for love as the others. More than that, I saw a special strength, a determination the others didn't possess. One of them, born without physical sight, looked directly at me as if seeing through other senses, and said, "Father Obatalá, I feel I'm different from the others, but I also feel I have something special to offer." In that moment I grasped a fundamental truth I would carry forever. Imperfection was not a mistake. It was a different form of perfection. How did Obatalá handle this revelation about human differences? And what other challenges awaited him in his divine mission? Stay with us to discover how this experience transformed not only humanity, but the very heart of the great creator Oryxa. That revelation about the beauty of imperfection shook me deeply. I spent days observing those beings who were born different, and with each moment I discovered something new about the nature of creation. The young man without sight developed an extraordinary ability to hear not just sounds, but emotions. His ears captured the rhythm of hearts, the silent music of others' feelings. "Father Obatalá," he said to me one golden afternoon as we walked along the riverbank, "I can hear the sadness of that old tree over there. It weeps because it lost a branch in the last storm. I can also hear the joy of the fish swimming upstream. They sing because they found cleaner waters." I fell silent, processing his words. How could he perceive things that even I, in all my divinity, hadn't noticed? It was as if the absence of physical sight had opened portals in him to subtler dimensions of existence. A young woman born with limited movement became the group's wisest counselor. Her inability to run and leap like the others led her to observe with astonishing depth. She understood nature's patterns, relationships between people, and life cycles in a way that surprised even my divine consciousness. "You know, Father," she said as she wove baskets from palm fibers, "maybe I can't dance like the others, but I can see the dance of all life. I see how each person has their rhythm, how each moment has its own music." I began to understand that what I had considered a mistake was in fact a different kind of perfection. Every apparent limitation opened new possibilities. Every difference brought a unique gift. But not all humans grasped this truth as I was beginning to. Some of the perfect beings I had created started looking at those who were different with suspicion. I saw something emerge that caused deep pain in my chest. Prejudice. "Why are they like that?" asked one of the first men I created, pointing at the group of different ones. "Why did the Father make them strange?" I felt divine anger rise within me, not against him, but against my own failure to better prepare my creatures for acceptance. It was like discovering that, by giving them free will, I had also given them the ability to choose exclusion. "They are not strange," I replied with a firmness that made the surrounding trees tremble. "They are different expressions of the same divinity that exists in you." But I realized my words weren't enough. I needed to show, not just tell. I decided to do something that would forever change those first humans' perception of differences. I summoned everyone to the central clearing, where a large, smooth stone served as a gathering place. "My children," I said, my voice echoing with all the divine authority I possessed, "the time has come for you to understand a fundamental truth about creation." I asked them all to close their eyes. Then, using my divine power, I made each one temporarily experience the differences of the others. Those with perfect sight went blind for a few moments. Those who ran freely felt movement limitations. Those who spoke clearly experienced difficulty expressing themselves. At first, there was panic. Some screamed, others cried. But as the moments passed, something magical began to happen. They started discovering other ways to perceive the world, other ways to connect with each other. The man who had shown prejudice, now blind, stumbled and fell. He was helped by the young blind man, who guided him with kindness and patience. "See," the young man said, smiling, "the world isn't just what eyes can see. Smell the flowers, listen to the winds whisper, feel the texture of the earth beneath your feet." When I restored everyone's abilities, I saw tears streaming down many faces, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of understanding. In the days that followed, I witnessed a beautiful transformation in the human community I had created. Those who had excluded now actively sought to include. They developed special languages to communicate with those who had speech difficulties, created smoother paths for those with movement limitations, invented games everyone could play regardless of their differences. But the most touching moment came when one of the women I created gave birth to the first naturally born human baby. The child was born with features that made it visibly different from the others, and for a moment my divine heart raced with concern. How would the parents react? Their response taught me perhaps the most important lesson of creation, the power of unconditional love. The mother held the baby to her chest and whispered, "You are perfect just as you are, my little one. Your differences are special gifts that Obatalá placed in you." The father, with tears in his eyes, kissed the child's forehead and said, "I can't wait to discover what unique gifts you've brought to our world." In that moment, I realized I had created something even more beautiful than I had imagined. I hadn't given humans just life. I had given them the capacity for love that transcends appearances, limitations, and differences. It was then that Olorum visited me on Earth for the first time since I began my mission. His presence filled the entire clearing with a golden light that made everything seem even more beautiful. "My son, Obatalá," he said, and I heard pride in his divine voice. "You have surpassed my expectations." "Father," I replied, "I must confess I made mistakes. Some of my creatures were born imperfect." Olarum laughed, a sound like 1,000 crystal bells ringing in harmony. "Imperfect? You still don't fully understand what you've accomplished?" He then showed me a vision that forever changed my perspective. I saw the humans I had created not only as they were in that moment, but as they would become across generations. I saw extraordinary artists born from families that celebrated difference. I saw compassionate leaders who learned empathy through their own limitations. I saw brilliant inventors creating innovative solutions precisely because they needed to adapt the world to their unique needs. "You see, my son," Olarum continued, "the so-called imperfections that worry you are, in fact, seeds of evolution. Each difference, each challenge, each apparent limitation is an opportunity for the growth of compassion, creativity, and unity." Looking more closely at my creation, I realized humans had naturally developed something I hadn't consciously planned: a network of mutual support. Those with keen sight became the eyes of those who couldn't see. Those with physical strength became the arms of those with movement limitations. Those who spoke well became the voice of those with expression difficulties. But the most beautiful part was that the exchange wasn't one-sided. Those who couldn't see brought insights about the nature of sounds and scents that enriched everyone's lives. Those with physical limitations developed mental and spiritual skills that benefited the entire community. Those who spoke little devised nonverbal communication methods that deepened everyone's connections. It was as if each person were a unique piece of a divine puzzle, and every piece was necessary to complete the picture of humanity. But even with all these wonderful revelations, there was a moment when I deeply doubted myself. It was when I witnessed the first major conflict among humans. Two groups had formed on opposite sides of the river. One believed they should live more primitively, in total harmony with nature. The other believed they should use their intelligence to create tools and improve their living conditions. The disagreement grew into hostility. Perhaps I gave them too much freedom, I thought, watching some humans raise stones against each other. Perhaps I should have created more obedient, less questioning beings. Then something extraordinary happened. A young woman from the group of different ones. She was born with a condition that made her speak very slowly, walked to the middle of the conflicting groups. "Why can't we be both?" she said, each word slow but laden with wisdom. "Why can't we have some who live simply and others who create new things?" Her simple question, spoken with such effort yet so much love, made everyone pause. Suddenly, they realized the foolishness of fighting over things that weren't mutually exclusive. That day I learned that sometimes the deepest solutions come from those forced to think differently due to their own challenges. As the days passed, I realized my constant presence was starting to limit human growth. They looked to me for answers they needed to find themselves. It was time to step back and let them discover their own path. But before leaving, I wanted to give them a special gift. I gathered everyone in the central clearing on a full moon night, when divine energy flows most easily between worlds. "My dear children," I said, "the time has come for you to walk on your own. But before I go, I want to give you something you'll carry forever." I touched each of their chests, planting a special seed, the ability to recognize the divinity in themselves and others, regardless of external differences. It was as if each heart received a small fragment of my own divine compassion. "Whenever you look at someone who is different," I said, "remember that their difference is sacred. Whenever you feel like judging or excluding, remember that you are all reflections of the same divine light." Obatalà's journey is reaching its climax. How will he complete his mission? And what final legacy will he leave for the humanity he created with such love and dedication? Don't miss the emotional conclusion of this sacred story, where we'll discover how the experience of creating humans transformed the very heart of the great Oryxar. The morning after the blessing ritual, I awoke with a strange feeling in my chest. It was as if a part of me had expanded beyond the limits of my own divinity. As I watched the humans begin another day, I realized something fundamental had changed, not only in them, but in me. They no longer sought me for every small doubt. They saw me as a loving father, but respected that they had their own journeys to follow. I observed a group of young people creating a new kind of music, combining sounds never made before. Another group developed a form of painting, using pigments from fruits and earth, creating wordless storytelling images. "They're becoming co-creators," I murmured to myself, and the realization filled me with deep paternal pride. This was exactly what Olorum had dreamed of, beings who didn't just exist, but created for themselves. Then I felt Olorum's voice echoing across dimensions. "It is time to return, my son. Your mission on Earth is complete." I looked around the clearing that had become my temporary home, at the humans who had become my heart's children. The idea of leaving caused bittersweet pain. It was pride mixed with premature longing. "But Father," I replied in thought, "what if they need me? What if they make mistakes? What if they forget the lessons they've learned?" Olorum's response came laden with wisdom that pierced the depths of my soul. "Obatalá, you've given them something far more valuable than your constant presence. You've given them the ability to choose love over fear, inclusion over exclusion, compassion over judgment. Now they must exercise those choices on their own." I gathered all the humans one last time. There was something different in the air. They could sense a change approaching. Some children clung to my robes as if intuiting it was a farewell. "My dear children," I began, my voice trembling with emotion, "the time for my departure has come, but I want you to know I will never truly be far from you." I saw tears well in many eyes, and I felt my own divine heart break a little, but it was a necessary departure, like a bird leaving the nest to learn to fly. "You've learned that differences are sacred, that love is stronger than fear, that you all carry a spark of divinity. Now it's time to spread these truths across the world." The blind young man, who had been my first teacher about the beauty of differences, approached. "Father Obatalá," he said, "how will we know if we're making the right choices when you're not here?" I knelt and took his hands in mine. "Whenever you feel doubt, ask your heart, does this choice bring more love to the world or more separation? If the answer is love, you're on the right path." Before leaving, I felt an urge to make one final creation, but this time it wouldn't be a human. I took a handful of the leftover sacred clay and molded something different, a mirror. It wasn't an ordinary mirror, but a special one that reflected not just physical appearance, but the spiritual essence of whoever looked into it. When I finished, I blew over it with all the wisdom I had gained during my journey on Earth. "This mirror will remain here in the clearing," I told the gathered humans. "Whenever any of you feel lost, look into it. You'll see not just your reflection, but the divinity within you. And remember, what is true for you is true for all other humans, no matter how different they may seem." A young mother approached with her baby in her arms. The same baby born different and received with such love. "Father Obatalá," she said, "I promise to teach my child and all the children who come after him everything you've taught us." As I prepared to return to Orum, a deep reflection overcame me. I had descended to Earth with the mission to create humans, but they, in turn, had created something in me, a deeper understanding of what it means to love unconditionally. Before this experience, my love was perfect but distant, like a star's glow, beautiful but cold. Now my love had the warmth of the sun, embracing, nurturing, capable of fostering life. I had learned that true perfection lies not in the absence of challenges, but in how we respond to them. The humans taught me that vulnerability is a form of strength, that limitations can be gateways to extraordinary discoveries, that true love doesn't see imperfections, it sees opportunities for care and growth. I came here to be a teacher, I thought, but I also became a student. The moment of departure finally arrived. The humans formed a large circle around me, each holding a flower they had picked as a farewell offering. It was a rainbow of colors and shapes, simple daisies, exotic orchids, tiny wildflowers, each beautiful in its own way, just like every human I had created. "Before I go," I said, "I want to give you one last gift." I raised my hands to the sky and invoked a power I didn't even know I possessed. Suddenly, the flowers they held began to glow with a soft light. But it wasn't just light, it was connection. Each flower became an invisible link, tying all the present hearts together. "Now you literally carry a piece of each other," I explained. "No matter where you go, no matter how far you spread across the world, you'll always be connected by this thread of love. And whenever you meet someone different, remember, they too carry this same light." As my physical form began to turn translucent, preparing for ascension, Olarum granted me a vision of humanity's future. I saw generations spreading across the earth. I saw moments of great beauty, humans from different backgrounds uniting in love, entire societies built on accepting differences, scientific and artistic discoveries born precisely from the diversity I had created. But I also saw moments of darkness, times when some humans would forget the lessons and revert to judging, excluding, and discriminating. My heart tightened with concern. "Do not fear," Alorum whispered in my mind. "In every generation, there will always be those who remember. The seed you planted is indestructible. Even in the darkest times, there will always be lights shining, reminding others of the path of love." With my final words in physical form, I made a promise that would echo through the centuries. "My children, whenever you or your descendants feel lost, call for me. I can no longer appear physically, but my essence will always be available to those who seek the path of compassion. Whenever you see someone excluded for being different, remember me and act with love. Whenever you feel like judging, take a deep breath and seek the divinity in the other person. Whenever the world seems too divided, be the bridge that unites." Tears flowed freely on the faces around me, but they were tears of gratitude, not despair. They understood it wasn't truly a goodbye. It was a transformation of our relationship. When I finally ascended from earth, I was no longer the same Obatalá who had descended with clay in hand. I was a divine being who had learned what it means to love like a father, to suffer like a creator, to grow through teaching. Olorum received me with an embrace that held the universe's full approval. "You did well, my son. Very well." "Father," I said, "I believe they transformed me as much as I transformed them." "That was exactly the intention," he replied, smiling. "True creation always transforms the creator." Now, as I look from my celestial abode to earth, I see the legacy of that first creation experience spreading through millennia. I see doctors working tirelessly to heal those born with challenges. I see teachers developing special methods to teach children with different learning styles. I see artists celebrating human diversity in their works. I also see ordinary people making extraordinary choices. A young person defending a different classmate. A mother teaching her children that all families are valid. A leader creating laws to protect the most vulnerable. Each time this happens, I feel my divine heart pulse with pride. The seed I planted so long ago continues to sprout. And you, hearing this story today, know that you carry the same divine spark I placed in the first humans. No matter your differences, your apparent limitations, your unique challenges, you are a sacred expression of creation. When you meet someone different from you, remember my journey. Remember that differences aren't accidents, they're divine gifts that enrich the world. Remember that true love doesn't see imperfections, it sees opportunities for growth and connection. If you feel different, excluded, or misunderstood, know that your difference is exactly what the world needs. Just as that first blind young man taught me to hear with the heart, just as that young woman with physical limitations showed me life's invisible dance, You have unique gifts to offer. This story doesn't end here. It continues every time you choose love over fear, inclusion over exclusion, compassion over judgment. It continues every time you look in the mirror and see not your flaws, but your divinity. I, Obatalá, continue shaping humanity, no longer with clay, but through every heart that chooses to love unconditionally. You are part of this ongoing creation. You are my living work of art. Remember, you are not an accident, you are a miracle, and your difference, whatever it may be, is sacred. May this story plant in your heart the same seed of unconditional love I planted in the first humans, and may you, in turn, help that seed sprout in other hearts. Because that's how creation continues, through you, through us, through the love we choose to spread across the world. Aksay. Thus ends Obatalà's journey, but his message echoes eternally. We are all children of the same divinity, molded with love, unique in our individual perfection. May we honor this truth in our daily lives, celebrating our differences and cultivating the compassion that unites us. If this story touched your heart, share it. As Obatalá taught us, love multiplies when divided, and wisdom strengthens when passed on. Thank you for joining us on this sacred journey. May Obatalà's light always illuminate your path.